Okay, hello Cloud Gurus, and welcome to part 2 of launching our first EC2 instance. Let's go back over to the AWS console. Okay, so here I am in the AWS console. I'm in EC2. Down here we can see all the details about our EC2 instance. So we can see which key pair it's using. So it's using my US East 1 key pair. We can also scroll down and we can see that termination protection is turned on. This is a true value. We can see a whole bunch of different stuff, including our IP address, your DNS address, your public DNS address. You can use this this URL, and you'll still be able to browse to the Hello Cloud Gurus webpage. In here, we've got our status checks. So this comes up a lot in the SysOps Administrator Associate. You've got a system status check. This is checking the underlying hypervisor, so it's checking the actual physical machine. And then we've got our instance status check. This is actually going and checking the EC2 instance itself. You can hold over here and have a read of it by holding your mouse over the little eye symbol. In here, we've got our monitoring. Now, we are going to do CloudWatch later on in this section of the course. We can turn detailed monitoring on for this EC2 instance. In here, we can see our CPU utilization. We can see our network. We can see different disk utilizations, status checks, etc., etc. And we are going to go in and create our own CloudWatch metrics and dashboards later on in this section of the course. And then in here, we've got our tags. And this is what we set up when we first, provision this EC2 instance. Now, I can go up here and I can do different actions. I can go in and stop my instance. I could go in and try and terminate it. But you see here, I can't click this button. And that's because termination protection is turned on. If I wanted to turn it off, I just need to go over to my instance settings. In here, we can see we can do a whole bunch of different stuff. So we can add or replace roles. We can change our termination protection. I'm going to go ahead and hit yes, disable. I'm now able to go in and go terminate. And if I click this button here, it will terminate that EC2 instance. I'm going to leave it running so that we don't have to keep provisioning EC2 instances. There is a couple more things I want to show you though. So over here, we've got different things that we can do. We've got our spot requests, we've got our reserved instances, dedicated hosts, scheduled instances, and then capacity reservations. If I click on reserved instances, I can go in and start to purchase my reserved instances. And you can go through and have a look at the different types. So you could say you want Linux, you want a standard tenancy. In here, you could say I want a T2 micro, super large, whatever. Let's go T2 small. Term, let's go straight for the 12 to 36 months. Let's go payment option all up front. And then you could go and hit search, and that will show you these different instances. You can then go and add these to your cart. So if you're basically purchasing a T2 small for 36 months, effectively it's going to be $229, and that's pretty good rate when you think about it for a virtual machine in the cloud for 3 years. You can only pay $300 or less than $300, $229. So that's how you go and purchase reserved instances. Let's go back over to the EC2 dashboard, and before I'm just going to go ahead and hit launch instance, and I just wanted to show you some more things. So we're going to launch an Amazon Linux 2 AMI. We're going to leave it as default, and we're going to leave this as default. In here, we can add our volumes, and we saw this in the last lecture. But what you can do is if you click in here, you can change it to be encrypted. So you can use the default AWS EBS encryption key. And this means that essentially what's going to happen is that this volume will be encrypted when it's first launched. What you can't do, though, is encrypt the root device volume when you launch it. And we'll see why that is a little bit later on when we cover encryption. But essentially, if it was encrypted, we wouldn't be able to launch it. So you can encrypt additional volumes, but when you first launch an instance using Amazon's AMI, it's not going to be encrypted. You can go in and encrypt it later. I'll show you how to do that. But just remember that when you first launch an Amazon AMI image from Amazon, it's not going to be encrypted on just the root device volume. On all the other volumes, it will be. So let's go over to my exam tips and cover off what we've learned so far. So we learned that termination protection is turned off by default. We had to go in and turn it on when we provisioned our EC2 instance. It's also important to remember on an EBS-backed instance that the default action is for the root EBS volume to be deleted when the instance is terminated. So basically, if you go in and terminate your EC2 instance, it's going to terminate your virtual hard disk drive as well. That's the default action. You can change that so that it keeps the virtual hard disk drive though, so that is an option that you can do. And then we also learned that the EBS root volumes of your default AMIs cannot be encrypted. There was no option there for us to go in and encrypt it, but you can use third-party tools such as BitLocker, etc. And BitLocker comes with Windows to encrypt your root volume. So you could provision an EC2 instance, a Windows EC2 instance, log into it, and then turn BitLocker on, and that will encrypt the root device volume. That will encrypt your hard disk drive. And there's another way you can also do this when creating AMIs, and we're going to learn how to do that in a lab in this section of the course. But then we also saw that if we had additional volumes, that they can also be encrypted. So you can provision an EC2 instance with additional volumes that are encrypted. You just can't provision one with the root device volume. And like we learned, root device volume just means the volume in which the operating system is installed. So that is it for this lecture, guys. If you have any questions, please let me know. If not, feel free to move on to the next lecture where we're going to learn about EC2 security groups. So if you've got the time, please join me in the next lecture. Thank you.